effects if they're not that effective. So from my point, I want to just give you our experience from our research, and also this is very important for us to communicate with the end users and also with the manufacturers, so they are aware of what's the challenges or difficulties that we may have in the real world. For the last 7 or 8 years, we have been working with two landscape growth regulator active ingredients. So before we talk about those, I want to do a quick review of plant growth hormones because these are the molecules we're trying to manipulate with PGRs. I hope you all remember your plant biology. There are big 5 plant hormones. Auxin is the only one that is regulated by gravity and is in charge of apical dominance. And gibberellins, this is a large group of several different gibberellic acid, and they're in charge of elongation of the internals. Cytokine, they are in every part of a plant for their cell division, so any growth involves cytokine also is in charge of wound repairing. Ethylene is the only gas format of the other hormones. This is only one that is gaseous and is involved in fruit ripening and plant aging, and also a cross-talking with other hormones, especially when it comes to a response to light, temperature, extreme conditions. Abscisic acid, ABA, these are the stress messengers. Whenever there's extreme temperature or when there's drought, stress, the ABA level is going to increase, and that's going to signal the plants to shut down some of the functions, such as the stomatal openings are going to close. And hormones work together. For example, the auxin-cytokine ratio is going to change how plants grow. When the ratio is very low, that's usually in the spring, plants tend to put more energy into shoot growth. When this ratio is higher, later in the season, plants tend to put more energy into root growth. And all these hormones, they respond to and are affected by environmental conditions. So altogether, it is a more complicated process how they affect plant growth. And the majority job in the landscape maintaining landscape plants, majority of that job is pruning. This is like a mechanical approach to manipulate plant hormone, especially the auxin. When you do shearing, you actually remove the topical dominance by removing the tips, and in that case, you other than maintain plant shape and size, you also promote branching. And in some species, shearing also promotes flowering or rebloom if it acts more like a dead hiding. Another pruning that we often do, sometimes like cosmetic, aesthetic pruning, is thinning. This is to taking out diseased or dead branches or optimize light air in that canopy. And sometimes we use both shearing and thinning to rejuvenate an old or declining plant. The chemical approach, PGRs, can also affect plant growth, but may not be in the same way as the pruning mechanical approach. First of all, I want to review really quick what are plant growth regulators. They are synthetic molecules that regulate the biosynthesis process of plant hormones. Some of the PGRs are non-hormone, they are synthetic. Some of them are hormone-based products or they're hormone mimics. And there are several key factors that will affect PGR effects. For example, there's a big difference in terms of using a liquid or granular formulation. The liquid, when you use that as spray or drench, the effects, the delivery is right there, and the granular usually takes longer to deliver, to dissolve. So there is a little bit delay. However, granular tab give you a wider window. You can apply it ahead of time, so you're not going to miss that timing for application. And timing, this is the window. When you apply within that window, the effect is most effective. And the regulatory effects often depends on timing because over a growing season, plants have different hormone changes, and application timing is most important factor that affect your regulation. Foliar, drench, or sprange, these are the most common way to put out PGRs, and depends on what type of PGRs you're using. The application method is really important because some are more root absorbed and some are more foliar absorbed. Tank mix or not, this is thing more related to turf grass growth regulating, because a lot of times it's easier and save times to do a tank mix with fungicide or even with herbicide or even fungicide or fertilizer.
Dr. Chen, can you, sorry, let me interrupt a little here. Can you explain what sprange is?
Sprange is a heavy foliar spray. So it's a foliar spray, really heavy, that actually the material is going to run out. It's going to run off the plants and get into the soil. So if you are applying a mixture like fungicide with with PGR, you can do a sprange, so you can get both of the materials into the plant, especially if your PGR is a root absorbed type 2 PGR. Okay, we're going to keep going. And also chemical and application cost. These are the factors you need to consider when you think about whether or not PGR is a kind of appropriate option for your plant regulation. A lot of PGRs that we're going to talk about have been very successful in greenhouse and nursery production use. This is because in a controlled environment, their effects are more uniform and more significant. I'll have a couple of examples. For example, Dikegulac. This is the same active ingredient in Algeo and also Atrimmec. Algeo is registered for greenhouse and nursery production use, and Atrimmec is registered for all three, greenhouse, nursery, and landscape. And the same product is also used for landscape, and you can see here, Algeo at 1600 or in combination with Flurel actually provide effects that is more like a branching agent at the same time control plant head. And with Verbena, you can see there's the similar branching effect, and also plants seems like the leaves are smaller. So they do provide branching benefit. Another chemical active ingredient we're going to talk about later is the Flurprimidol. This is TopflorG, which is the same, which has the same active ingredient as the one that we're going to talk about a lot, that is Cutless. And TopflorG is registered for nursery and greenhouse use. And here you can see at 8 parts per million or 16 parts per million, the plants are more compact, and actually they look like they have more branches. Maybe not, but the overall size is reduced. PGRs for landscapes, are they a good fit? It depends on what are your expectations. If you're expecting lice mowing, trimming, cleaning up, hauling, it may help. Labor saving. This is actually the purpose of using PGRs is to save your manpower, to get the job done quicker with less manpower, and then you can use that manpower for your other business, for getting a new account or provide more service. It may benefit you by, less mowing and trimming directly is going to use less fuel costs, equipment wear. Whether or not it's going to be economically feasible, if it's going to be economically saving your money, it may not. The point is, if you can break even using PGRs and using just hand trimming, and then you can save some manpower. Even if your cost is even, the actual manpower you saved by using PGRs may help you in the long run to get more job done. And another benefit is some of the PGRs can enhance plant quality by promote branching or enhance the leaf color. Expectations for use on turf grass, this has been pretty successful, is to reduce clipping growth. Because there are ban of clipping to landfill, and also in Louisiana, in many cities this year, we started to see ban on utility trim or landscape trim. You cannot dump them to the landfill. So this is another motivation for using landscape PGRs. Also, for turf grass, a lot of PGRs increase plant density and reduce their scalping. Inhibiting seed head, especially for pollen management, is another very important aspect for turf grass. Also hard to mow area. However, I have heard a lot of people saying are their effects predictable, unpredictable. This is a big concern because environmental conditions is a big source of variation. You see difference in regulation effects because of different temperature soil, rain, fertilization, and it's all case by case. It's all more depends on site conditions. So it needs experience. Application challenges, for example, the size of the trees or shrubs you're trying to control may be too big, and it's hard to gauge your rate and volume if it's enough to get the efficacy as reported. And also there could be drift effects for large trees. And plant age, growth stage, condition, this all affect how they respond to the same amount and rate of the same PGR. Solution pH, your spray solution pH, and whether or not you need surfactant. This need attention, but this can be done. Another important factor is humidity. When the air humidity is high, a lot of landscape plants, they kind of shut down their stomatal opening, and when the air humidity is too low, they do the same. So you have to spray early in the morning, early enough not to injure the plants by hand spraying under high temperature, and also not too early, and to make sure the leaves are dry, so your spray can get on a dry leaf instead of a moist leaf. There are a lot of growth inhibitors, retardants available on the market. The ones that are called inhibitors are most likely those are inhibiting meristem, so they're called inhibitors. The retardants, more likely, these are the ones that prevent plant from elongation, so they're called retardants. There's a difference. To make it easier and more convenient, we can group them into two groups, type 1 and type 2. These two groups are grouped by basically the function of the material. Type 1 most of them are cytokinin. Some of them may have some GA, and their function is to stop or prevent plants from growing. So they manage the meristem, the growing point. They absorb through leaves, and it takes about 4 to 10 days. They're very quick to show effects. And their control effects usually are within the 10 to 20% for landscape woody ornamentals. Type 2s are GA these are the retardants to control shoot elongation, so they make the plants more compact without affecting the tip growth. And there are B9, which is registered for nursery reproduction, bonsai, and Primo is more for turf grass, and Catalyst Flurprimidol. This is for turf grass. They have turf grass formulation also. This is what we're going to talk about later. Most type 2 GA inhibitors are absorbed by roots, and there are also some stem and leaf activity, but because they are transplanted, they're transmitted through the plants via xylem, so the roots uptake is very important. It takes longer, 3 to 4 weeks, for them to show effects, so you need to apply them a little bit early and try to catch that spring flush. And for some plants, there's spring flush and fall flush. And they can provide about 10 to 30% growth reduction. For turf grass, it can be up to 50%. It takes, they will be effective for you for about 2 to 6 months, so relatively the the longevity is longer than the type 1. There's another way to classify PGRs. I'm going to skip this because we're a little bit tight on time. And I'm going to just talk really a little bit about Embark. This is type 1. It's myfluidate. It's used a lot on turf grass, but it also has good activity on ornamental plants, especially ground covers. With Embark application, it does need a surfactant. This is the most important thing to remember. And also, it's not very compactable. It is with some, but not all of them. So you need to do a test, a jar test, to make sure it's compatible. And almost all the PGRs applied to landscape, you need to watch the weather to have some time, for all the foliar application, to have some time, no rain period for them to stay on the foliage. And Atrimmec, this is another type 1 PGR and used a lot actually on woody ornamentals. So later on you can see some data with comparing Atrimmec to Flurprimidol catalyst. The effective range of Atrimmec is about 800 all the way up to 3200, and is you also need some testing if the plants are not listed on the label. It temporarily stops shoot elongation and promotes later branching, but its effects is relatively short. It's shorter than the type 2. Atrimmec may cause transient injury. This is because it works on the growth point, the growing point. So you may see a reddish or purplish color on the new leaves, and also coupling or twisting of the new leaves. Sometimes we observe injury also. We observe injury also on more mature leaves at a higher rate. And this picture shows Atrimmec at 3200 parts per million on bougainvillea, and you can see the young leaves were kind of like showing a little bit coloration and twisting. Comparing Atrimmec with catalyst is like comparing a type 1 with type 2. Typically, the type 1, which is on the right-hand side, which they grow out of that control, that regulation effects in about 4 to 6 weeks. But catalyst being a granular, this material being a granular, it lasted longer, it stayed in plants longer, and the effects is also last longer. Comparing to the untreated, you can see although the Atrimmec, the size is not really, maybe a little bit shorter than the untreated, you can see the Atrimmec treatment effects on side branching. You definitely is fuller than the untreated, but the catalyst is really compact. Paclobutrazol is another one that has been used. This is actually a type 2. This is another one that has been used on landscape plants, especially among the ones that registered for landscape. There are several for turf as turf enhancer, and I want to mention Tide Paclo. This is the one that I've heard about that some landscape management company use this to control tree growth, especially for large trees, and they are applied as a soil injection. But we haven't done any research with that material. Another type 2 is Flurprimidol. The material is called Cutless.33 G because it's a granular type, and it comes in like this 21 pound per pail, and the cost is about $5 per pound of material. It's a type 2 retardant with moderate strength. As we have said, it's more effective than Atrimmec at the same cost. As a granular, usually it can be hand broadcasted and has some slow release. It depends on how much rain you get, how often you irrigate. And the effects, once it's delivered into the roots and start to show the effects, usually is about 3 to 4 months. Catalyst application, the most important thing is timing, and we have been using application timing to target spring and fall. We are in USDA hardness zone 8, so our spring is about mid to late March. So usually we'll apply second week in March, depends on if we have a mild or cold spring, and we do another full application in some of our experiments to target the last week in August or first week in September. So these are the two timing that actually coordinate with the spring flush and fall flush of many landscape plants we have. Also, based on our experience, we have seen 2 medium rate. We think that recommended rate range, 2 medium rate application is better than 1 high rate. This is to supply that constant growth regulation effects throughout the season. So we either recommend 2 rates, 2 medium rates applied in spring and fall, or 2 applications over 2 years targeting the spring. That's the biggest flush you're going to see. Next slide, we're going to see a rate card, and any rates that are higher than that rate card may potentially have some plant injury, but it depends on the weather and many other factors. This is the rate card recommended by CIPRO. Basically, I wanted to point out that for some of the sensitive plants, for example, boxwood, you need to target your rate between 7 to 10 pounds of the material per 1,000 square foot. And for holly, burfoot, which are not very responsive, that they need a higher rate, you're going to target 21, a much higher rate. And also, you may need to apply it first in the spring, targeting spring flush, and then 4 weeks later, give it another application, because for some of these plants, throughout the growing season, they're continuously growing. Like Loropetalum, we're going to see a graph later for Loropetalum. Another 2 ones that are hard to control, for example, ligastrum and viburnum, we have done research in our studies. We have had these in our studies, and they are not responding to the rates identified on the card. So we're suggesting CIPRO to increase the rates on this. Application for short shrubs or young shrubs, they have to be established when they're still small and young. You can just apply over the top. For larger plants, you can apply it either as a circle underneath the canopy if there's no irrigation or if there's micro sprinkler, or you can apply it right underneath the drip lines. And by the same rates, you don't increase the rates. You don't divide what you apply here by 3 and put 3 big piles here. You still manage by still calculate by the area you're going to put out. So, for example, the area for this circle at 1 foot wide is about 9.4. It's about 9 square foot. The most important thing when using Cutless granular is to make sure there's rain or irrigation to move the material to root zone. This is different from foliar application where you don't want the rain within 24 hours. And this is the case that you need the rain either shortly after application or within 1 or 2 days. It is recommended to apply Cutless this granular at the same time as you prune and put out mulch and then put out the granular plant growth regulator at the same time, so you'll save extra trip. You can do everything in 1 trip. But also, it's hard to coordinate that with weather to make sure they have some rain unless you have irrigation installed. So that's another challenge. Downy jasmine actually shows flower benefits compared to the untreated. These are a couple of pictures provided by CIPRO. And I'm going to show you pictures from our study. And this is Photonia, and you can see the coloration, but very significant growth reduction. Ornamentals we tested in our studies include Asiatic jasmine, azalea, which is azalea didn't have any response, and Burfoot holly, Elaeagnus, Japanese boxwood, knockout rose, ligastrum, Loropetalum, sweet viburnum, and sweet viburnum didn't have any response at all, and wax myrtle. And wax myrtle so far is the most responsive species. This was one of the studies that were looking at responses of Loropetalum and knockout rose to PGR rate and also frequency. We have a single application in the spring or 2 applications, one in the spring and one in September. So the fruit rates we used are here, and we used different rates for knockout rose and Loropetalum. And we had kind of like a light trimming at the spring application, and there's no trimming at fall application. So let's look at knockout red. This is 1 month after the second application, so this was taken, this data was taken October 2011 after the September application. As we can see, that plant responded to the 10 pound per 1,000 square feet times 2 and also 20 pound per 1,000 square feet times 2. So two applications, those responded the most. Comparing these 2 applications, if 10 pounds versus 20 pounds are similar in growth reduction, how about other factors? After the first application of that 20 pound, we actually noticed over the summer that treated plants had more flowers. The quality was better than the untreated. However, the 20 pound 2 application was kind of like reduced flowering. Number of flowers was significantly reduced by 2 application of the 20 pound compared to 5 pound by twice. So this is kind of like a signal that you're using a rate that is too high. So for knockout roses, we do see a benefits from using about 10 to either 10 pounds twice or 20 pounds once. But the problem with knockout rose is a lot of people like to trim them from time to time to regenerate that color flowering. So comparing to that, we feel the PGRs are doing their job, maintaining the plant size and also put out flowers. But I'm not sure if that's application landscapers would like to use on knockout rose. Loropetalum Zhuzhou responded also very well. This is also in October, and there's a significant growth reduction that marked with letter B comparing to the untreated, the first column. So either 14 pound per 1,000 square foot or twice 14 pound, both of these responded very well. This is a timeline from June to September, and we can see the plant head of the untreated unpruned was kind of at every data sampling point was much higher, and the pruned are of course reduced. This is the red line. Comparing to that pruned but no PGR treatment, the bright pink, and there's a light lavender. These are the Atrimmec treatments at 1,600 or 3,200. They're kind of like in the middle comparing to the Cutless treatments. And Cutless at 0.5 pound, this is active ingredient, which equals to 7 pound product per 1,000 square foot, or at 1 pound active ingredient, which equals to 14 pound product per 1,000 square foot. Both of these rates did pretty well, and actually the 1 pound by August and September is better than the Atrimmec effects, because the Atrimmec effects were kind of like wearing out. And this picture is to show you the Zhuzhou at 1 month after second application. Zhuzhou 7 pound visually are more compact than untreated. We also tested on a ground cover Asiatic jasmine, and the untreated is upper left, and you can see the 20 pound cost twisting of the leaves. However, these are transient. Plants' growth, the internode was much shorter, and the growth control effects were very significant, and I don't think that twisting actually affected any quality of that plant. The last experiment I wanted to show you was an experiment that we conducted in the landscape field, actually with plants being planted as hedges. As you can see in this picture, the plants were planted 3 in a row, and this is the first year, and later on they grew into hedges, especially wax myrtle, ligustrum, and sweet viburnum. In that study, we had catalyst at 0, 14, or 21 pound per 1,000 square foot applied March 13 and March 14. So this is application because plants were still young. We didn't do twice per growing season. We actually did once per spring for 2 years. And we also had macro sprinkler or drip or no irrigation to see whether or not irrigation is going to affect material delivery. This was one of the biggest factors that affect their effects. We took plant growth measurements over 3 years and time spent on trimming, and also weight of trim width, we call it clipping weight, also over 2 years. This is the time when we were measuring and then also trimming. So all the plants were trimmed to certain predetermined head and width, and then we apply the PGRs, and then we come back to measure them again. This is the first year after spring application. These were plants were 1 year old. They were planted in June 2012, so they were 1 year old, and they were treated in spring, and then this were measured in September. So first year growth rate reduction was pretty significant. If you look at plant size index for Elaeagnus, holly, and wax myrtle, the black columns, the black is untreated, so the untreated were very different because wax myrtle grew really quick, just within 2 years after planted. And the 14, the light gray, and the medium gray, the 21, all had some growth reduction effects. See, these are letter B. That means statistically they're significantly lower than the untreated. And also holly has some effects, but because they grew much smaller, much slower, the regulator, the reduction was only about 10 to 15%. And for wax myrtle, the reduction was much more significant, especially with the high rate, which was about 35% head size reduction. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, screen sharing paused.
Are you trying to get back to the full screen?
Yes. Can you see the screen? Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can see an effect of, oh.
Can you see it?
Now I can't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's fine. We'll just take a short break.
Is it back?
Nope. I can hear you, but I don't see the slides.
Screen sharing. Show my screen.
You could either show your screen or show your PowerPoint.
Show my screen. Okay.
Yes,
I
now
hope you
it's
can
back.
see it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Can you close down that Dell update your recovery media? Yeah, close that. It's covering part of the... Okay, good.
Now
Very
I'll
good.
show you. Okay, good. The effects of your irrigation type. We found that irrigation didn't actually affect the effects of PGRs. In this figure, you can see this is plant head in inches, and these are no irrigation with catalyst at 0 untreated, low rate or high rate. The low was 14, the high was 21. And no irrigation, there's really no difference. When it's just natural rainfall, the three different rates, there's really no difference. And when there's drip irrigation, still there's not much difference. When there's a micro sprinkler, the catalyst rates at low or high, their effects was a little bit more significant. And this was the only one, Elaeagnus, this was the only one that's showing consistent effects with micro sprinkler. And with wax myrtle and some of the others that was responsive to PGRs, the plant head in response to irrigation method was not that effective. So with additional drip or micro sprinkler, even if they're applying even if they provided additional irrigation to move the material down, apparently with our climate, you know, with as often as the rain we get in 2013 spring, we didn't see much of the irrigation effects. Now let's look at time spent and weight of waste, clipping weight. This is Joey, he's pruning the wax myrtles, and you can see we actually collect all the trimmings and weigh them. And while he's pruning, we time how much time he spent on each hedge. For wax myrtle, which responded the best to the PGRs, it was very significant looking at time spent on pruning by seconds. These are still the black ones are the untreated, and the light gray and high gray were the low and high rates. And it can significant difference time saving with catalyst application, but with the no irrigation, and also the drip irrigation, but not that significant with the micro sprinkler. So it varies. It's not really consistent along the three different irrigation type. But still, with the no irrigation, you know, no additional irrigation, you pretty much can get consistent, safe in time. And also, the next slide, I'm going to show you the clipping in wax myrtle. Clipping weight with no irrigation, consistent with time spent on clipping, there is a significant saving on clipping weight. This means you have much less material to haul and clean up. It's up to 65% with the high rate. And with drip and micro sprinkler, although the time spent on pruning wasn't significantly shorter, especially with the micro sprinkler, still there are much fewer clipping to haul and clean. So this is what we found, probably more than just saving time and make the plants look more compact. This is probably another thing is fewer clipping to haul and clean. Growth rebounds was observed with Elaeagnus. Elaeagnus in 2015, we observed really long shoots coming from the treated plants, much more than the untreated plants. So it seems like plants were trying to rebound, trying to grow out of the effects of the growth regulators by doing all these water shoots. So when you trim this hedge, still you have to trim the ones that are coming out strong, that sometimes they're called suckers or they're called water shoots. And but still there might be less clipping because the shoots that were already treated over the previous 2 years were still short. Effects of other practices such as mulch and fertilizer will also may affect your PGRs. We look at pine straw mulch effects on azalea by applying the granular PGR either above or underneath that mulch. As we can see with Sunglow, overall we had unpruned, pruned, and then all pruned with different PGR rates with Atrimmec or catalyst. And we can see that Sunglow, with all the pruned treatments, there's no difference. So the PGRs didn't really control growth of Sunglow. And Sunglow, applying the PGR above mulch or underneath mulch, there is no difference. With Merlot Lace Loropetalum, there is a significant growth management effects with pruned Cutless at 7 or 14. However, there is no significant difference in mulch effect. So applying the material underneath or above the mulch really doesn't matter. And with fertilization, we did an experiment with Loropetalum Zhuzhou applying herbicides, applying PGR, and also in combination with 4 rates of Osmocote 33 G. And there's no interaction, so I'm talking about the two factors separately. With Cutless rates, we can see significant height reduction by the 14-pound rate. And with the fertilizer, we can see a significant higher growth, higher plant height at the 4-pound nitrogen per 1,000 square foot. And for most of the plants, they're recommended to have at least 1 or twice application of fertilizer per year at 2 to 3 pounds. Sometimes you can do split application of 4 pounds into 2 pounds application. So when you do the fertilizer application, make sure you're not putting out too much, because it does counteract your PGRs. And we already talked about the irrigation effect, and this is one more slide to show that overhead drip irrigation and no irrigation, how they interact. With Elaeagnus, we can see that overhead is actually the plant growth is much smaller than the drip irrigation, and same with the wax myrtle. And it's possible because there is a growth regulator effect in that, but this is just one trend we observed with Elaeagnus and wax myrtle. Most of the time, there is no effects. Okay, so with that many data presented, I want to summarize what we found so far with landscape PGRs. First of all, plant response is species specific. As we can see, azalea, Sunglow, and sweet viburnum had no response to even really high rates of PGRs. And also, 2 applications each growing season, targeting spring or fall, or 2 consecutive spring, is needed for responsive species to maintain regulation. Otherwise, the regulation effects is going to they're going to grow out of it by the end of one growing season. And trimming frequency can be reduced for responsive species that requires at least 3 trimming per season. You may be able to reduce that trimming from 3 to 2 or even 1, depends on your PGR application. And that will save your time, because putting out a granular PGR saves much more time than try to trim that extra time used to trim that hedge. And also, when you do 2 trimming, the second trimming is supposed to save your time on cleaning up and hauling the clippings, because you should have fewer clippings to haul. Also, PGRs can reduce time for trimming and cleaning with responsive species, and it depends on how often you use it. So if you have questions about a specific species that is you think you need to try the growth regulator, give us a call and we can discuss the details. And effective delivery of this material is very important, either rain or irrigation. It will affect efficacy. And this is case by case. For young plants, you may have to provide them irrigation, and that can either positively or negatively affect your PGR. So this is also a case by case, and also need some experience. And fertilization counteracts PGR effects, so try to split your fertilization instead of putting them out as a one big application. Okay, that's all I have for today. And for more information, you can contact me at that phone number, or email me, or send me a message on our Facebook. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chen. That has been very informative. I could see that you have had a lot of experience with the landscape PGR application, and I do agree with you that there's a lot of case by case issue here. The irrigation, the growth stage, the weather. There's a question here. You mentioned that sometimes you do two applications in the fall. One application in the fall, in the end of August and early September. So I guess it's that date may be different for different states, right? Let's say it could be different for Texas. If we don't have rain all the way till August, the end of August or early September, you probably do not recommend the second application, right?
Yeah, Texas is probably extreme. It depends on the location. East Texas, you can try to utilize that rain when you have it and see if you can still put it out. But for West and Central Texas, if the rainfall is really scarce, you'll have to have kind of like a water tank or some type of irrigation to water it in if you want to use it. And again, like I said, if the landscape is not irrigated, that no irrigation situation is probably the best growth regulation.
Okay. There are more questions, but before I forget, folks, when you sign out this webinar, there's going to be several short questions popping up. So, please help us to fill out the little survey.